would catch up with you while you were doing this at the gas station?
We're ever nervous that the Vice Squad would catch up with you while you were doing this at the gas station?
No, even though it's a close thought, but you only dealt with people you know, both pimp parties or whoever you're dealing with, you already knew them. You knew what they liked or who they liked or how they liked. And the Vice Squad tried to ease in once in a while, but I never really talked to them. And funny bit, there was a motorcycle cop called Cal who brought his motorcycle home with him. He lived in a rooming house a half a block above the gas station and brought his motorcycle in every night to fool around with to polish and shine and keep shine. And he'd often be there when the Vice Squad asked me. I said, ask Cal, he's over there, he's in LAPD.
And didn't you say that there was a sexual assignation right in front of Cal and he missed it?
One time I had two people and everything was taken, the trailer and everything in the back, and washrooms were taken. And I put them in the car and put them up on the grease rack right next to where Cal was working on his motorcycle. And the grease rack is high, it's way above your head.
When I look at the photo of the gas station, this sort of film noir one, it always strikes me there's this huge sign over the grease rack that says lubrication. Someone over here?
Yes.
Yes.
You're so wonderful on camera. Did you ever consider becoming an actor yourself, or did you have offers?
No. Let me repeat the question. You're so great on camera, did you ever get offers to be an actor?
No, in several years I might consider that.
The time is now, apparently. Yes.
In the era of Trump and Pence, having seen very dark decades for gay rights, what do you think the most important form of political action is now to keep us going forward without more repression coming back?
So the question is, in the time of Trump and, I thought you said Trump and pimps, but I think you meant Trump and Pence. Same difference, I guess. In the time of Trump and Pence, where repression seems to be coming back, what's the best form of political action? Well, as the filmmaker, I wanted to at least have that be a takeaway from the film. One reason I was passionate about making this film and bringing Scotty's story to as wide an audience as possible is for generations who succeeded, his own and others that came after him, to understand that there were very difficult times previously, and that people could not live true lives, and that they had to really live lives in the shadows. Part of that even extended to things like you saw on screen, a psychiatrist on CBS News declaring homosexuality to be a mental illness that has reached epidemiological proportions. This was CBS News presenting this to the public, and most of the public believed it, and there was a big tie-in and feedback between the Hollywood myth machine and what Gore Vidal, our mutual friend, which we met through Gore Vidal, referred to as the heterosexual dictatorship. So since we seem to be in the grips of another kind of dictatorship right now, I don't know what sexual it is, but it's something. I think we need, and rights are being endangered. I think we need to be aware of that. I'm going to go section by section, so I'm going left, right. I'll go back to this section. Anyone in this section ask a question? There's a hand, yes.
Did you ever get around to fixing the board in that deck?
I'll get to it.
In the back, way back.
I want to thank you for your service. I'm a veteran also, and I know what it means.
Well, that's nice of you. That was being in the South Pacific all during World War II.
Thank you. Hard times. Anyone in the front? No. Okay. Back aisle, and then I'll get to you next. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about Gore Vidal as a friend and customer?
Gore Vidal, can you talk about him as a friend and customer?
Gore Vidal was a friend for actually 60 years, and I met him originally in about 1947 when he came into the gas station, and we've been friends ever since, even though Gore spent half his goddamn life over in Italy.
Scotty and I met through Vidal. The first time I heard about the gas station was through Merv Griffin, actually. I know it's shocking, but So Merv, I did a profile of Merv Griffin for Vanity Fair, and he said, "Oh, buddy, there was a gas station in Hollywood where you used to go to get into trouble," and his euphemism. And I heard about it from another sort of gay elder statesman, and then one day I'm in the living room of Vidal's house in the Hollywood Hills, and he said, "I want to find Scotty," and I said, "Who's Scotty?" And he said, "Scotty was my pimp." And I will tell me more. And he said he had a gas station. I was like, wait a minute, the same one that Merv talked about? I said, the same. And he said Scotty's living in Laurel Canyon, and next time I was there, Scotty was there. And I think it was because, this is why the film is in memory of Gore Vidal, it was because of our mutual association with him that I think we were able to get off to a fast start on the film.
Right. What do you want to know now?
Oh, nothing. Yes.
So you tackled such giant subjects, and I thought it was done so beautifully. It's even very important film. So I wondered what that was like for both of you as a journey. I mean, how did you shape so well? How did you do that?
The question is, lovely compliment, important film, many heavy subjects and important subjects, and what was the journey like for us? So do you want to talk about us working together over 2 years? And
The journey was a very nice ride in a very pretty car.
that was my car, I think. And his car too, which we drove in a lot. I mean, also, well, perhaps the most momentous thing to happen was when one day we were having lunch at the Chateau Marmont, and Scotty announced to me that he had a set of new pets. Do you want to talk about the skunks?
Oh yeah, I told him I was feeding the mother, and she just got little babies, and they're by with the 5 little babies, and the raccoons and the skunks kind of try to get each other's food. And skunks do not fight with cats. They're the same family. They fight with dogs or pee on dogs, but cats can be buddy-buddy with a skunk.
So we had a whole skunk storyline enter the picture, and skunkographers, and we got them. I wanted, the movie Grey Gardens is a great influence on me, and I was hoping for raccoons, and we got raccoons finally, so it was a great triumph. I want to, you talked about subject matter and shaping, and Bob Eisenhardt, who cut the film, is here tonight. I want to acknowledge him. He's a master of cinematography. My producing partner, Corey Reeser, is here as well. Okay, going to this section here, and then we'll go to you next. Yes, you.
Seeing you in the beginning of the film and having such a flagrant homosexual life, and then seeing you get married or have significant female relationships with Betty, and then with your now wife in 1980, it's hard to marry the two for me to see that. So I'm trying to understand what was it about both women, why you chose those 2 women versus a man or another relationship, and did you have more significant relationships with men?
Did everyone hear that? Okay.
I may have several things going all at the same time. I'm talking about I leave one and go to the other.
Did you, at one point, I was amazed, because I can barely keep one relationship on the rails, so he had, 25 going at one time. You said you had a different house that you spent each night in, so there was a different client that got the overnight.
Basically, yes. Someone who stayed up all night. I don't have to get there till 2 in the morning, so they gave me time to do all the other things I had to do, and end up with the late night one till daylight,
So there was sort of like 6 guys that got an overnight, and then there was still room for Lois and Betty, and then 6 others a day. I mean, it is rather extraordinary. I think this is, Dr. Kinsey studied Scotty, and I think the word pansexual fits him very well, and I think it's a rare breed. So that's one reason that I was so interested in presenting a story. Now, yes, you.
I noticed that there were not a lot of people of color during that time. I was wondering if there were tricks that were people of color that certain movie stars or whatever wanted.
Right.
And 2, what were kind of the race attitudes in the liberal underbelly of Hollywood?
So the question is about race and were there tricks? I think that one thing that you've often told me is how if someone wanted something, you got it for them, and was this part of your kind of appeal?
What they wanted is what I got for them. So right there tells you the whole story. What they asked for, what they wanted, what they liked, I got that for them, not somebody else or something else.
So I think what I learned was one reason that Scotty was so successful is that he was sort of a couture trickster, and that if he would figure out what your tastes were, and he would get you that. In terms of clients, and it's hard to know who was seeing whom because it was so long ago. So that type of granular detail wasn't really gotten into in the film for that reason. All the way over to this side, yes, in the hat.
I was wondering, did the Stonewall riots here in New York affect any of your perspective in terms of your...
Did you know about Stonewall, the Stonewall riots when they happened in 1969, I believe it was?
The riots, you mean?
Yeah, there were riots out the side of a bar near here called Stonewall. Did that come onto your radar screen at all?
No.
I think one thing that I found interesting in researching the story was Los Angeles, the West Hollywood scene and the East Side scene in LA, which is Silver Lake, which was, East Side was very politicized. Harry Hay and the Radical Fairies and the Mattachine Society had a lot of East Side. Scotty was more on the West Hollywood, Beverly Hills side, and I was amazed at how siloed things were, and he was not in that political crowd as much, although there was some crossover here and there, because you knew Rudy Gernreich, who was the boyfriend of Harry Hay, he was in fashion, so it was more like a West Hollywood thing. Okay, going back to the middle, oh my God, there's so many hands, I'm so appreciative. You in the glasses here, sir.
Yes. Did you hear from any estates of people featured in the movie that may have had a problem?
Any objections? Well, the book in the movie, I'll let him answer for the book. Did anyone speak up and object about the book?
No, not really. They would mention something, and before the conversation was over, it was a great book, so.
It was Walter Pidgeon's nephew, I think, showed up and praised him for telling him more about his ancestor, Walter Pidgeon. I met Randolph Scott's great-granddaughter. I think she was fascinated. Jennifer Grant, the daughter of Cary Grant, did say something about the book. The movie's only been out for a week. No one so far has said anything. And then one final question on this side. No one on this side. Okay, in the front here, sir.
It's a wonderful book, but I wonder if there's any more dirt you omitted about Kinsey.
Any more dirt about Kinsey?
There was never any dirt about Kinsey. It was just what he did, how he did it, and but it wasn't dirt. It was just his life. And would you call it dirt? No.
The dirt's in the eye of the beholder.
Not dirt. It was dust.
The Kinsey cycle is fascinating. Kinsey sought Scotty out as a subject to study because of his reputation, and we met through the author Gore Vidal, to whom the film is dedicated, and he's a very important person to both of us, and I think we would both agree a very important person to the world. Gore is someone Scotty met a long time ago, and do you want to talk about your meeting and relationship with Gore Vidal and how important he is?
I met him in 1947. That's before any of you were born. And he came in the gas station, introduced himself, and we were friends ever since until he died here a year or so ago.
A couple of years ago. So Gore had this decades-long friendship with Scotty. I first heard about Scotty, actually not through Gore Vidal. I first heard about Scotty through Merv Griffin, who I don't want to shock anyone here, but apparently lived a double life. And Merv Griffin told me when I was interviewing him for Vanity Fair that there was a gas station on Hollywood Boulevard where you would go to get into trouble, which was a euphemism for homosexuality, I gathered. And I then heard about this gas station over the years from other people that were in the know in that period. And then one day I'm in Gore Vidal's living room, he was a friend, in the Hollywood Hills, and he blurted out, "I want to see Scotty." And I said, "Who's Scotty?" And he said, "Scotty was my pimp." And I said, well, tell me more. And he said he had a gas station on Hollywood Boulevard. And I thought, my God, this is the person, and he's around. And he said he lives in Laurel Canyon. The next time I went to Vidal's house about a month later, Scotty was there. And I think it was this association between Vidal, Scotty and Vidal and myself, that link that allowed us to begin making the movie almost immediately.
What?
Well, you want to talk about nothing. We'll move on. We'll move on to dirty sex stories. How about that? Our trust was cemented then, and what you're about to see is the result of a 2-year-long cinema verite shoot, where Scotty, I think, goes through sort of a mirrored corridor of memories, revealing things about Hollywood that no one really was an eyewitness to. And the first person who was, I think, one of the key people that he met that opened the world of all of gay Hollywood to him was George Cukor. Do you want to talk a little about how important George was to the job you ended up doing as a gas station fixer-upper?
Yeah, George Cukor came in the gas station from the studio in 1947 because he just bought a brand new 1947 Dodge sedan, and he introduced himself and said, it's kind of warm today, would you like to come up to my place and take a dip in the pool? I said, well, I can't today, but maybe tomorrow.
But then you ended up there.
Oh yeah, I ended up there for years.
And what you'll see unfolding in the film is the discovery of a lot of evidence that corroborated Scotty's stories, which some people to this day find unbelievable. But we found in our research and archival search process what ended up being hundreds of photos of Scotty in the period, whether they were underground pornographic photo shoots or shoots of people arrayed around swimming pools of some of the great homes, including, for instance, Cukor's, where Scotty was kind of like the ringmaster of the pool parties of the days of yore. So all of this discovery process was incredibly corroborating for me as the filmmaker taking a journalistic approach. Do you have a question? I'd love to have it. Yes.
So do you know Kenneth Anger? Or what do you think of him?
The question's about Kenneth Anger, who's the author of Hollywood Babylon, who's still with us. Did you ever meet Kenneth Anger?
No, I don't recall. I might have met him, but the name doesn't ring a bell.
So Kenneth Anger and Scotty, I think, though they don't know each other, have a great deal in common now because they're both the bean spillers. I think there's a really interesting thesis for someone in a queer studies department to do, comparing Hollywood Babylon to Scotty's book, Full Service, because the difference for me is Anger, I think, was brilliant, and he's also an underground filmmaker of the highest caliber. But he was going by received information from sourcing. Scotty, I think the difference is, and what makes him extraordinary, and I hope you find the film to be living up to this, is that he was there in the bedrooms, in the living rooms, and around the swimming pools. It's wonderful that he's with us at 95 to actually give us an eyewitness account of what had to be, and this is where I think the film becomes political, a underground world of sex and sexuality, because to be openly homosexual in that period was, especially in Hollywood, a career killer. Do you want to talk about how people had to play it cool in the old days?
Well, years ago, half the people working would lose their job, depending on what it was, of course, and unless you worked as a bartender in a gay bar or something. But otherwise, you could lose your job just by them finding out what you might have done. Not that they saw you do it, but just that the word gets around and you've lost your job, especially if you're into teaching and numerous other jobs.
And the other aspect, and then I think we'll about it, but Scotty was actually dealing with the real Vice Squad in real time, in real life. Do you want to talk about that experience?
For years, the Vice Squad was red hot, but they did it for money. There was a lot of money exchanged in them busting someone. And then Harry Weiss, who was an attorney then for that particular thing, took me down, one day or a couple of different days to show me how he always got the case before a judge that he knew well. And then, where are the arresting officers? Oh, they had something else to do, case dismissed, because someone would go out in the hallway and pay off the arresting officers, and they do that, and he dismissed 10 cases in an hour.
So this was in effect an extortion ring. The police were in on it, and they would basically shake down innocent people at gay bars. There was another aspect of it. It's rumored that Harry Weiss, who Scotty mentioned, who was an attorney for people who were in trouble, gay people who were in trouble with the police, he owned a string of gay bars. So there is a theory, a rather dark one, that Harry Weiss would tip off the Vice Squad to raid his own gay bars, and then approach the people whose lives were hanging in the balance and offer to get them off, and then they would have to pay him to get them off. So he was taking their money for drinks and then potentially ruining their lives and being paid on the other end too. So this is like a real life James Ellroy scenario that I think is an underappreciated fact. The Vice Squad is covered in the film, and I think it's a very important part of this history. I want to thank you all for being here. Again, we're back here tomorrow doing Q&As. Tell your friends. It's a very indie film, and we're doing great, but word of mouth means everything. So we really appreciate you being here. Goodbye.
I don't know. I think this is the champagne room. What's going on?